Gentleman over there starting to move away from the mic. What's your question?
Nkrumah Raymond Kahodi, my name and surname, West School of Governance. My questions are directed to Miriam and Iraj.
I told you, Miriam.
And they are more interrelated. I agree with Iraj when he says that GEAR has achieved its objectives. But those particular objectives were at the expense of the people. And primarily they were at the expense of the emancipation of those being historically oppressed and dispossessed. And I'll be able to demonstrate that. What it has been able to achieve is the creation of a lean state. What it has been able to achieve is a reduction of public expenditure, liberalization of the market. I think that has been expanded earlier on. But also, Iraj earlier on stated that the South African economy was in a crisis because it had its own challenges. Around 1994, 93 to 96, the manufacturing industry used to employ close to 2 million plus workers. At around 2005, the manufacturing industry has shrunk significantly to close to 1.5 million employees, right? The mining industry used to employ more workers, more than 1 million, right? Around 1994, 10 years after the adoption of GEAR, it's one of the sectors that has significantly declined. The impacts of public expenditure, creation of the lean state, is that one of the factors is that universities and technicons were merged. Consequently, students who had an opportunity to go to technicons to pursue their studies, to acquire whatever required skills, did not have that particular opportunity. That particular opportunity was closed. Right? 10 years down the years, we are complaining about and crying about skills and access to education and so forth. Then the question is around the process around policy objective and policy formulation process that you pick up that there's always either a disjuncture or the basis of policy formulation tends to negate the real conditions of the people, such that policy formulation also assists towards the emancipation and freeing people from the scourges of poverty. Another aspect that I want to bring on board is that what one finds quite questionable is that SETAs are dominated by companies. The sector skills plans are formulated in consultation primarily with the industries, and also workplace skills plans which are developed and formulated by employers with minimal influence by workers, right? So effectively, employers are driving SETAs. And through SETAs, employers and industries had an opportunity to drive the problem of shortage of skills. But 14 years after the existence of SETAs, SETAs have not made significant impact to address the shortage of skills and so forth. But employers have been able to claim their skills development levies, and particularly big employers, right? So there's a question of also in terms of whose interest are these particular policies formulated? Are they formulated for the emancipation of the people from the scourges of poverty and from the servitude that came into existence during the period of colonialism in the country during the period of apartheid? Or in essence, what it does, it perpetuates that particular thing. And those particular aspects are missing. Also now directing this to Miriam, in terms of when you read the National Development Plan, the 486 pages, what lacks in the National Development Plan is a reference to New Growth Path as an example, a reference to IPA, right? What you are able to pick up is that what it also does, in actual fact, what it also does is that it creates an impression that SMMEs will be considered as one of the drivers to assist to create employment. That is 9.9 jobs created through SMMEs. But the 10 years experience tells us that SMMEs in the country have never been able to have a meaningful contribution in regard to their share of employment in the country. They've been insignificant. And also when you look at a typical example at the electrical contracting industry, which has got high level of small companies, majority of them have been facing liquidation, and majority of them have not been able to even to contribute in regard to the issues of skills.
I think I'm going to have to stop you there. You've made your point, and we will get a response from the panelists, but thank you for that meaningful contribution. I feel like a radio talk show host about to say, I know you've been holding for so long, but thanks for staying on the line.
Thanks. My name is Sabelo Mgun. I'm from School of Governance. I think we are very good at defining and conceptualizing these concepts and these isms. But the fundamental principles that we don't get, and this is something that is wrong. We do not want to talk about it. I suggest that Marian really listen to Iraj when he talks about the issues of accountability, issues of people accounting for what they're doing. I mean, for God's sake, if these people do not want to do their job, we can give them 30% of the budget and they can be corrupt on the side, and the right people will do their job.
Thank you. Short and sweet.
Good evening. I'm Ngobile Ndimande. 20 years ago, I was a youth and an entrepreneur in construction. And the important part that our government did in 1994 is to have the BEE. That was abused. Again, I'm talking to Raj on gear, and I'm going to talk to Trevor again. BEE was abused again by Bros Club, collusion and cartels. In my new life, I'm in construction, and I do manufacturing, metal in manufacturing. 10 days ago, I'm with my partners here. 10 days ago, Trevor, we had a problem of a lot of unrest, a lot of toying in the metal industry, in the manufacturing. And when we address these issues and say to them, you can't get what's that, bonus, and we're telling you now on time that we're going to have short time, you're going to work 5 hours a week, 5 hours a day, 8 to 12, so that we can retain the skill. 2 days ago, then we meet, the Premier of Gauteng was talking about NDP in Gauteng is not going to be used, we are going to use TMR. And one of the salesmen says to me, in construction, in manufacturing of metal, of the gear, of the things that are manufacturing, bolts and nuts, bearings. There's a bearing that is used in the mines, and this guy says, I'm not going to use you because I'm getting it overseas cheaper. And our government, on the as the other speaker has spoken, that policy formulation is a problem and the implementation thereof. And we only focus on people doing the unrest and saying, let the women, let youth be part of the scarce skills. Be part, go and buy into companies that have been owed by people for the past 48 years. You get into it, you buy 51%. Yes, the processes and the DFIs and agencies that government has implemented, they do not have a favorable environment for you to even access that money. Secondly, you have employees that are skilled that feel that we could have unrest, not work in the factory because we must get bonus, and they know the things that have been happening. Trevor, it is a problem for us to think South Africa, we need every time to be out in the street and not be aware of what happens to employment. If we are talking SMMEs to be part of the game, to access the inclusive economic growth, we need to talk about the attitude. We need to talk about skills development, skills transfer. We need to talk again. What is extremely important, Desiree, is that the freedom in 1976, I'm from Soweto, Zola. In 1976, we jumped, we did not go to school. There were 3 years that we could not attend. I get my freedom, I've got so many foreigners around me. And you wonder, where are the controls where are the policy controls of
Mobi, I'm going to have to stop you there.
Yeah,
Thank you so
but
much for your contribution.
Okay.
But I'm worried that we're going to start digressing and talk about too many things instead of focusing
I'm
on
talking
the
about the
discussion.
cartels and the boys club in the country. The white boys club of the
I hear
what
you
in
completely,
Iraq
and
is-
those are valid discussions.
Let's look
But
at the
we've got
policy
5 minutes into our
formulation.
program, and I think we want to respect everybody's time here. But thank you so much for your contribution. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give all of the people who asked questions. Unfortunately, that's where we're going to have to end it. But first, let's get responses from our panel. Trevor, shall we start with you?
Yeah, no, yeah, the lady talked like a boss, but actually she's a petty bourgeoisie. So she's getting squeezed by the big bosses, and then is trying to transfer her problems onto the working class, onto her workers. But she says something which is correct, because the government, you know, without a proper industrial policy, without beneficiation, removing the protections of our domestic industry, it means that, you know, there is job losses this end as goods. Something the comrade from NUMSA, Tengo, was saying. Yeah. So, and I think that the fact that NUMSA is taking up this issue of buying rolling stock, railway rolling stock in China, you know, because I had workers there, they're now saying down with China. Okay, I'm an internationalist, so I don't agree with that. But what we should be looking at is how to develop a policy which is in line with our the needs of the economy. And then I don't agree with, you know, a bit of xenophobia that now our country is full of, I don't know, Nigerians or whatever, because Africa is our motherland. Okay, and then, and we have to work, you know, together. And we're all colonized, and we all suffered. But I would say that when it comes to corruption, because there's this idea now, you know, Iraj and someone, you know, let's fire all of them. Hey, where is the root cause of the corruption? I don't believe that all the tenders being given out by the government are corrupt. Okay, maybe a majority, but what I'm trying to say is that no, but it's a serious, it might be a majority, but it's a serious issue, because basically a pro-capitalist government, its job is to supervise a process which we can call reverse Robin Hood. So you take from the poor and give to the rich. You take from the public purse and pay and put it into private pockets. This is the whole, even in the States, that's the story. So the capitalists, sometimes they steal illegally, but sometimes they steal legally. They've got many ways of doing that. Yeah. Like they exploit you, they make, I don't know how much money from your labor, and they pay you peanuts. It's allowed. Directors pay huge like that, and you get nothing. It's allowed. So what I'm trying, finance capital. You know finance capital? They speculate on futures, and then they need insurance against that speculation. So, you know, it's just, it's crazy. So it's a problem of the system. But my last point, you know, I got a few others, but I think, Comrade Tengo talks about the context of the welfare state. So this is important because he is NUMSA. It's true. You know, the ambassador talks of the welfare state, but he can tell us how it came about. There were certain social forces, workers, you know, communities, made a deal with the bosses because they were strong enough to get at that position. So I think in South Africa, we have got good policies, or those policies which are against the workers will only be changed if we mobilize enough support. You know, for example, NUMSA wants to build a united front where we unite labor and community. Can you see? Yeah, so what we need is social forces to push the elite so that they deliver to us. My last point is that we fought against apartheid. And behind apartheid was imperialism. I remember clearly Margaret Thatcher came to Soweto to support apartheid, okay? But we mobilized, and the workers in England, they marched against Thatcher because she was supporting In fact, apartheid was one of the greatest solidarity movements in history. I think South Africa is still capable of actually inspiring and leading and resuscitating that vision which drove Mandela and helped us to topple that monster. But this time the new monster is capitalism.
Mr. Trevor Ngwane, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. Abedian, you're closing.
Yeah, I think the question is about the loss of jobs in manufacturing sector. The reality of the technology is that it's not a stagnant. The second reality of technology is that over time, it keeps automating and replacing labor. And the third reality is that if you want to be part of the global economy, you got to be either competitive or not. You can't be still, look, I want your money, but I don't want to other conditions. You can't, you won't get that. So manufacturing sector has suffered jobs partly because the process of automation in agriculture, in mining, in manufacturing, in banking, in everything that we do, in telecommunication, increasingly and irreversibly is replacing humans by machines. And increasingly machines themselves are being replaced by digital robots. So we got to accept that. Therefore, we need to say the structure of the economy, come back to the education system, come back to the training system. We can complain about these things until we go blue in the face. Yeah. Technology will not stop. And therefore, we must be realistic. I'm all for very honest analysis of where we've gone wrong. But I'm not going to, it is not honest, it's not helping our children to sit down and blame everything on something that is not really embedded in the, or grounded in reality of how business works, how technology moves, and so on and so forth. Today, to just give you one example, today, one mine that opens, and I did the research, so it's not a speculation. A mine today that, let's say, uses $100 million in the same sector, whether it's gold mining, platinum, whatever, as opposed to 20 years ago, it uses 15%, 1.5, not 50, 1.5% labor. Of that 15%, 80% of it is highly, they call them knowledge workers, not even professionals, they're not knowledge workers. And only the rest is so-called low skill intensity. So the economy, the technology, the workplace is changing. We cannot get stuck to the ideologies of the past. Otherwise, we keep perpetuating. We're having good chat and clap for each other, but problem out there will not be solved.
In fact, while preparing for this program, I saw a piece on BBC, and they were talking about how 5-year-olds in British schools are already being taught coding. That shows you how far behind we are, and we're still talking about the implementation of a document.
And we're still battling about gear. We can't forget it.
You did it.
Was the best thing for that time.
Come down, kids.